Hello and welcome back to my garden. As you know, I'm a novice gardener, and it turns out I'm also a novice video creator because I was so busy working out my new clicker that I forgot to turn my microphone on. But ho ho ho, let's get on with the video. If you're a novice gardener like me, or perhaps someone with more expertise and you're willing to cheer me on from the sidelines, I'd love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. All you need to do is tap the button marked subscribe, and that means next time you open the YouTube app, phone, laptop or computer, one of my videos will be waiting for you. My thoughts are turning to planting seeds, and I'm conscious I've left it quite late in the season, but I'm a lazy gardener and I've outsourced some of my seed growing to my sister, saving those I know I can sow direct into my own ground for me to do. And that's the reason I'm holding my hoe. I've got to tackle my weeds first and then prepare my seed beds. Now, my other sister came and visited us a couple of days ago, and she is studying for her RHS exams, and she gave me some great advice on preparing my seed beds, which I've tried to stick to. But as I said before, I'm a lazy gardener and I didn't see through on all of her advice. But first things first, out with the hoe. I've been put off doing my weeding because it means getting the right tool for the job, which means unlocking the padlock of the garden shed and making sure I put the tools back afterwards. But as you can see, every time I use a new tool in the garden, I'm not quite sure I'm using the correct technique. And sometimes I think I'm using this hoe more like a spade to dig things out. Am I supposed to use it more like those two-sided vegetable peelers where you clip the weeds with the front blade but also with the back? If you know or have any hints and tips on how to use my hoe effectively, please do give me the benefit of your advice in the comments. I do feel here that I'm digging rather than actually hoeing. At the time of filming this video, you can see I've still got quite a good show of tulips. I've been waiting till they grow to a good height to put in a vase, but I think probably they're coming to the end of their season and they're over maturing in my garden before they're getting much height to them. So I've decided to crop my pink tulips and enjoy them indoors, and that's the whole purpose of my garden, to be able to enjoy flowers I've grown in my house every single week of the year. And don't these look fantastic, especially with the little raindrops on them. So while I'm out in the garden, I'm going to strip off the lower leaves. It's always good practice to do that, and why do it on my kitchen table and have to get rid of the leaves when I can do it straight over my compost bin. So I'm going to just plonk these in to a narrow-necked vase. It's quite a tall vase, so it's going to support my flowers and hopefully they won't droop too much. And as you can see, over the course of the next few days, they actually stood upright. I just love the way the tulips change over time. It's a few days later, and yes, I am rather grandly dressed for a few moments in the garden. I've just been to the outdoor swimming pool in town, and I'm waiting for my niece to get ready so we can go out and visit the vintage market in town. And I've got with me a little white jug, quite a small jug, but I've noticed that my last lot of tulips really are very short. And rather than cut my flowers and then arrange them indoors, I thought I would do a cut and plonk as I went. Now, you might recognise this vase if you're a subscriber to my channel. Did you watch the video I posted last time round when I shared my trip to Lewes in East Sussex? And I did spot the identical vase in one of the charity shops, although it was considerably more expensive than my car boot find. Tulips are a very forgiving flower, and because they move towards the light and continue growing once they've been cut and put in your vase, they don't need to be over-arranged. Just cutting and plonking will be just fine. This is the bit that I like best, wandering around my garden with a pair of scissors, snipping as I go. But of course, in order that I can cut flowers to enjoy year round in my home, I do need to put a little bit of work in too, and this is the bit that I don't really enjoy. But taking the advice of my sister, she has run me through some great tips on how to prepare my beds for direct seed sowing. Her advice was to use a garden fork and twist it a little bit to sort of rotate the top of the soil, then rake over it, and then tamp the soil down, then use the side of the rake to create straight lines in which to plant my seeds, then cover the seeds back up and water them in. Let's see how I get on with that. But first of all, I need to do a bit more intensive weeding. I've given up on the hoe, deciding I prefer getting closer to the soil and using my garden fork to remove the weeds. So the weeds I'm getting are clumps of grass, a tiny bit of bindweed, which I'm trying to keep on top of, pretty much every single day, getting it when it's about 10 centimetres long, rather than the great big long trails, which are harder to unwind from your plants if you do leave them too long. I've also got, I think, it's a sort of native geum. I think it might be called Herb Bennett. So it looks like a pretty little flower, but it's insignificant and it just seeds everywhere. So I don't mind weeds per se in my garden if they're going to be bold and beautiful, and I can cut them to put in a vase. Anything insignificant has just got to go. Now that it's lighter and warmer in the evenings, I've got another opportunity during the day to get out and do some gardening. So in the evening summer sun, I have set myself a task that I can do in literally 5 minutes, and that's to deadhead my tulips. I was telling my sister that the daffodils that I've just walked through just didn't do a single thing for me. Well, I probably got about 6 daffodils from a pack of 50 bulbs, and she has suggested that I feed my daffodils now so the energy can go direct in the bulbs ready for next year. So I've never imagined that you'd have to do that. Feed your daffodils? Let me know in the comments whether that's something that you do. I don't show it here, but I did fork over the soil to break up the top surface, just tickling it with the garden fork, and then a new tool for me using the garden rake. So again, I'm not entirely sure whether I've got the technique right here, and you can see on the more compacted soil that I didn't tickle over with my garden fork, I'm having a little bit more trouble moving the soil around and creating that fine, is it a till? A sort of grainage of the soil. So I am planting the easy seeds, the things that I know that I can just direct sow. So I'm starting off with Nigella. You can just see vaguely there the 2 lines that I've created. So I am trying to sow them as thinly as possible. And then I'll use the back of the rake to push the soil back in place. What I did later on though, I thought the rake was too big and cumbersome, and I ended up just using my fingers on the other seed beds. And look at this! Look what I found. I gave myself such a huge shock here that I imagined this toy turtle was real. I don't know how it got there. It certainly doesn't belong to my daughter. And then watering in my seeds, I couldn't find the garden rose, so I'm conscious of the fact as well. I've probably dislodged all my seeds, and my husband said I would have been better off if I had used the watering can first and then done the drill holes for the seeds and then covered them up. So it was calendula next. So I am trying to keep a record of what I'm doing in the garden. I've discovered that I cannot remember where I planted things or what they were, even from just last year, 6 months ago. So I've logged down, I planted my Nigella and my calendula, and then on my little garden plan, I think I showed you that in my last gardening video, I've just marked on where I've sown the seeds, so I know which pockets are going to not be available for planting later on. But hopefully by the time I get to planting the seeds that my other sister is growing for me, it should be quite straightforward as to where they need to go. And what I was showing you there is I'm using a vase of branches that I had on my patio table over the festive period, and I've just put them over the beds to protect them. You've probably noticed my dog likes to walk through the flower beds. I'm trying to discourage her from doing that. And I just did go on to plant some more seeds. There was borage, cornflower and a buddleia mint. And then what I'm doing here is just a rough broadcast of seeds. We had several mixes of wild seeds, and I'm putting them up the edge of the border where it's dry and the soil is much poorer. I understand from my husband that wild seeds don't like rich soil. So there's an update on my garden. Let me know in the comments what you think my chances of germination success are going to be. I think it's probably 3 or 4 days now since I did my sowing, and I cannot see a thing coming up. So I wonder how long I'll need to wait. Well, that's all from me for now, and I'll see you in the garden next time.